Right, there you go.
Cool. Hi everyone, welcome to the Lisa and Debs TV show, and today we are talking about the recent, I think, what we call it, a success in Iceland, about equal pay for women and men. And today also joining me is Deb Fletcher. Hi Debs.
Good morning.
Hi. Yeah, would you say it was a success?
Definitely. I do. You and I may not agree on this subject, but I definitely see it as a success, having been in a position where it's affected me in the past, and I've resented it enormously. You've been working for the same company for a number of years, and then having a male colleague come in to do exactly the same job and being paid £20,000 more than me. So I've been on the receiving end of that. So equality. Why is he getting paid more than me? Because he's got a penis.
Well, you never.
What else is the difference? Like, well, he's stronger than me, but he's not lifting boxes, is he? He's not doing weightlifting. Men may be stronger than some women. Like, there are some tough women out there that give them a run for the money.
That would only be applicable in a job that required physical strength.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So where was he different to me, apart from the fact that our genitals were different?
Unless his boss was gay, that might have made a difference.
I don't know. That's quite radical of you to say.
Well, if that's the only difference.
Well, no, and our boss was female.
Well, there's your answer.
Well, she was happily married, and I don't think that was the actual case, but you just wouldn't, and it wasn't just that one isolated incident. I work for Carillion, who are no more. I wonder why. Who had 50,000 employees, and that went on all the time. Each one of these companies like that have something called the leadership program or something along those lines, and they take the elite people. Okay, there's a problem. I've got a problem with that already, because you have to be a certain type to get into this elite group, which will always mean that you'll have the certain type at the top in the ivory tower. And guess what, Carillion? You're not there anymore. So you obviously weren't doing the right thing, but this leadership program was male dominated. So you'd have like 18 blokes taking this leadership program, which the staff affectionately called it behind closed doors Hitler Youth. I'm just repeating what I heard, it's not my opinion, but that developed that culture, and so you had to be a certain way, and it was all definitely male dominated. In all of the directors, there were 2 or 3 women. And there were like literally hundreds of male directors and 2 or 3 women. And guess what? Those 3 women were all viewed as hard-faced bitches, some of them. Not that they were, but that's how they
were. They? Did they have to be like that to be in that role? Were they
They definitely played up to it. They definitely didn't discount that, or like bringing fluffy puppies to fit in more or anything like that, or baking, you know what I mean? So you know what I'm talking about. But they certainly
don't bake. It's bad for your career. Bringing the cakes.
Exactly. Don't be feminine, for Christ's sake. Don't wear a skirt.
Yeah, they though? Because I found there's 2 levels of powerful women. It's the powerful bitch that wears the skirt, and there's the powerful one that wears the trousers. Do you know what I mean? And they're 2 types of women.
It was the trouser wearing women. Right. Okay, so and do they feel like they have to blend in? Because
is that not modelling? Is that modelling to an extent? I mean, women, I wear trousers more than skirts all the time. But in that environment, do you think that was, I'm going to be as equal as you on many points as I can, so that I do fit in, so that I don't stand out for the wrong reasons or draw attention to myself because I've got legs?
Yeah, exactly. Because the problem is, as soon as you start introducing, and I'm not saying all men are like this, but there's a few in there, and as soon as you start introducing a skirt, and it doesn't have to be a short skirt, you don't have to be pushing out your wares and showing what you've had for dinner, but as soon as you put a skirt on and get your heels heels out, right, they're like, oh,
Oh.
she's a slut, or she's using her sexuality.
Do you know, and this is nothing to do on this topic, but it would be very interesting to speak to somebody that was trans that then started wearing a skirt and high heels, and what their take on it is, and the views of the other people that would normally focus on a woman for wearing that, how then they react to a transgender in that same role. That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? But
Yeah.
anyway, that's an aside thing, but that just came into my head then.
Well, I'm thinking that these women that I'm talking about, lovely women, when you got to know them, they weren't bitches at all, they were lovely people. But were they removing themselves from their femininity and looking more male and acting more male and aloof to blend into that, so that they didn't get ostracized for being female or judged for being female, and you know.
Well, if I mean, it's that thing about being a lemming, isn't it, and not poking your head above the parapet, because if a man in that group suddenly was emotional, or suddenly wore a feminine type scarf, and I have worked in offices where there have been even CEOs that have worn pink scarves, so I've worked in all types of offices. Yeah, and in an environment that you're talking in, the women, if they're sort of, it's that becoming just part of the sheep, isn't it? So that you don't stand out. Otherwise, the attention goes on you. Whereas, so you just kind of come down to the lowest common denominator of behaviour and dress, so that then when you do stand out, it's for the right reasons, maybe for your brain, maybe for your ideas or something. You know, so that's a difficult one to, if you want a level playing field, what is the definition of a level playing field?
And are men ready for a bloody level playing field? A lot of them aren't, are they? Let's be truthful. Are they ready for the level? I wonder if it comes out of intimidation. If some men are intimidated by a strong woman, I don't know why they would be, but and that's the thing, if everybody sees each other as definitely in a box, you are male, you are female, and they have those conditionings about women being less than a man, and a lot of them still do have those preconceived ideas, then, you know, how can we get over that? And we don't see people as people, never mind whether they're male or female, black or white, whatever they are, trans, gay, whatever. Why can't we see people, not they're one or the other? So everybody should be paid the same amount of money if they're doing the same level of job. That's my opinion. If you're doing the same level, shouldn't matter what you are. If you can do it and you can do it well, you should get paid at that level.
Yes. The only thing to that is the other ones are you're doing the same job at the same level and you've got the same experience and you've got the same level of qualifications, even if they're managerial ones. You know what I'm saying? It's not just, I think, the job at that level. There are many other facets, aren't they, employing someone that have to be equal, and that's very difficult to go where's the line, where do we draw it, and where's the cut-off point, so that you don't qualify for that and you do, you know, because everyone's, you know, well, I would say everyone is slightly different. Some people might have an exact same career path. They've gone to school, they've got that many A levels, they went to university and got that degree and then did that vocational qualification, and then they end up in front of you. They should get the same pay if everything else being equal. And I think, you know, when that's a difficult one to get right, because you're going to have to, like I said, it's almost discrimination when you draw a line. And my experience is different to yours. I worked for large corporations, as did you. Mine were in the finance sector. Now, I don't know if that's different to a commercial construction type.
I've worked in finance too.
So my experience was that the jobs were all graded, and then there were levels within a grade, so that say there were two people doing the same role in an office, that role came with a grade, and then
a performance level.
Yeah, so you generally went in according to your experience, so far, and qualifications, suitability, at a level within that grade. And no matter how long you have been there, no matter how good you were, you couldn't exceed that grade in that job. It was capped. And then if you got promotion, you went. So if with everybody that, say, in the office that you're working with in that role, there was only ever so many levels, and then that was the top of the grade. So there wouldn't have been that much disparity anyway between the person at the, say, entry level to the grade and then the top level of the grade. They weren't ever that massive. And now this is a different, and this is, I think, different horses for courses. I only ever negotiated to go in at the top level of the grade, because that's what I was worth. And if they didn't see that worth in me, they weren't having me. And I think that is an element that not every woman feels that she can fight for, that she deserves, and doesn't. Now, that's part of negotiation of any business, isn't it? If you want me to work for you, that's what I'm coming in at, and if not, I don't want the job. Some people would say, I'd rather have the job and put up with being on a lower grade. Don't complain then that someone else negotiated and went in at the top of the grade. So I had a different experience to you in that. So, and that was the same across all, I've worked for several different corporations, and it was always that very same grade for the role, levels within the grade, and then you just went, if you wanted more money, you got promotion, and you went for the jobs and you proved your worth, and and the same again. So I kind of had a mantra. I never accepted what they offered me, and I always fought for more. So whatever they advertised the job at, I've come out always with more than there was advertised. Now that is down to the individual, but it's certainly available. And if people accept that, then it's my point of view. Don't moan if you've accepted less, because it's definitely out there if you want more.
But I've been in that position where first of all they've dangled a carrot and they've gone, well, if you get this qualification, then we'll give you, you'll do the next 2 or 3 steps up and you'll be on the same level as your colleagues, blah, blah, blah. And then you get that qualification and you're still lower than they are and you're doing the same work. So I don't understand that at all. And I once asked my boss, I said, what do I have to do to bridge that gap?
Was it a woman boss or a male boss?
A woman boss.
That's all right.
And she said, you have to leave. There's no fair way that they're going to do this for you. You have to leave, go to another job, get more money, then come back. Thankfully, I didn't go back. Otherwise, I'd be in a right predicament now because they've gone. But that was her advice. Leave and then come in back at that higher rate, and then you'll go from there. But there's definitely a ceiling on it. I actually went to her boss, and not over her head, but I couldn't get anywhere. So eventually I spoke to him, and that was like talking to a wall. It was just, that was the way it was. And
they're like, who are you sitting there making all that noise? I don't know what you're saying, but I don't want to hear it.
that meeting was over in about 8 minutes. It was like, I haven't got time to talk about this. Okay. I left soon after that.
And the other point on the whole equality of pay, I hate statistics, so I haven't looked up any, because they're all biased to whoever did the statistic report. It'd be interesting to any figures that are quoted, whether they include things such as if a woman has then been on maternity pay and her pay has got reduced, if that is taken into account in the figures, so that if you had a man and a woman employed for 10 years and the woman had 3 babies in that time, her salary income over that 10 years in total would be reduced, because you say she'd taken maternity leave. Different people have like half pay or reduced pay, don't they?
They do,
So even though she might have been in the same level of job and the same pay, because she's had maternity leave, overall it would have looked like she's been paid less. So that's something that I don't know when they're quoting figures, if that is part of the reason why it looks lower. Overall, I'm not saying that I don't believe that women are paid less than men. I'm just saying that sometimes I don't think the figures are all from an equal footing or bias.
Yeah, you're only as good as the data that you get and what you want it to reflect. It's more sensationalist, isn't it, to be like saying, to be bringing up these topics. It'll get them more, more attention. So it may not be absolutely accurate, but that starts another debate. Should women be penalised for having time off to have children? Because really, have we got a bloody choice? That we've got to keep the world going, haven't we? It's expected of us. Some people don't have children, but it's expected of us to probably get married and have children. So should we be penalised for that, or should we stay at that same level?
Well, I was horrified the other day, and it's a long time since I had children and went on maternity leave, but we had a couple who she was pregnant and she was a teacher, which you would imagine would be a well-supported role, and she only had 6 months on maternity leave and then she lost her pay entirely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, back in the day when I had kids, it was like so many months on full pay, then they went down to
that went a long time ago, because
half pay, and and then
you're quite a bit younger than me, but I still had
old.
But no, I had Ollie 7 years ago. So, and that was when I was with Carillion. So I did that. My pay just went down immediately to half, and then after 4 months, I think it was something ridiculous like that, it went to nothing, and then I had to have that sort of maternity benefit,
pay,
whatever it is.
Yeah,
and that's basically nothing. That forces you to go back before you're ready to go back. And in the meantime, while I was off, I went back quicker than I was meant to go back anyway. In that meantime, they changed my job, so I went back to a different job, and that's why I ended up leaving there, because I went back to a job that I couldn't stand, and that none of that was ever told. I was never spoken to about it. It was just done while I was away. So when I went back, my old job wasn't there, and I had to.
Well, that they shouldn't have done that, should they? Without consultation and phasing and everything else.
Well, you're joking. Didn't get any of that. But yeah, so that it is. It shouldn't be like that, should it? It shouldn't be like that, because we're the only sex that can have children. So why should make us more? It should make us more viable, not less viable, because we've got to have time off to have children.
Well, in some cultures, and certainly in previous civilizations, women were more put on a pedestal for their ability to reproduce, obviously.
Just as we should be.
Yes. But when I was listening to this younger couple, the stress, they were already stressed out at the effect that it was going to have on their ability to pay the mortgage and the bills, and she was only pregnant.
Yeah.
So how does that help anybody? How does that help him in his work? How does it help her in her work? How does it help anybody else? But to balance that, when you look at employment, being an employer, when people say you had a predominantly female workforce, and then say you had 4 women and 3 of them went on maternity leave, and you've got to pay them and you've got to pay someone to come in and do their work for them, suddenly as an employer, you're massively out of pocket, and often it can be unviable for employers to be able to support people and then pay other people to come and do the job for them while they're not there. And that's a real cost. It's not made up, if you know what I mean. You have to employ someone to come in while someone else isn't there. So that, I think, has to come from the government, because otherwise the employment would suffer. Either the cost of the business would go up, or they'd go out of business.
Mm-hmm.
I
get it. I can see both sides.
Yes, exactly. That's all I'm saying. I can see both sides. In other countries, and I can't remember if it's Finland or if it's Sweden, they actually are way more supportive and give them full salaries and give them years off, and they allow them to come back, and it's part of the structure. But that comes from the government supports that as well as the business. So I think It has to be a whole cultural and sociological support system, not just the company.
Yeah,
To be
agreed.
able to get over that one, because
Yeah.
it does have a real cost effect, and then prices would go up and then everyone would moan. So it's like kind of a bit of a vicious circle. But the stress that it puts on people, and then you're not going to be a good mother, are you, if you're stressed? And then
Well, there's enough stress when you have a new child anyway.
yeah,
Like lack of sleep and the fear, especially when it's your first child and you don't know what you're doing, and the fear of hurting them, or you know what I mean, not being able to do it. There's all of that, let alone worrying about paying the mortgage, and then the pressure on that.
Yeah, you don't get a good night's sleep, let alone not get a good night's sleep and get up and go to work the next day.
Yeah.
So, and if both parents are doing that because they can't afford and they have to pay someone else to look after the child, that's even more money going out, isn't it? Because I think childcare in a lot of circumstances is more expensive than what the women are earning, or some bizarre
I was
thing.
paying £720 a month for nursery.
Wow.
£720 a month
I'm sure
for nursery, for like, and not one-to-one. It's not a childminder who's looking after my child or a nanny. I probably could have got a cheaper nanny.
Well, I was going to say, some people probably earn that, so yeah, probably.
You know, but this
Nanny.
was a nursery, and just normal, and that's in Wolverhampton. No offence, but that'll be dearer in other places, in bigger cities where there's, you know, higher standard of you know, wages. You know,
There's a whole elite system within that now. There's elite nurseries, there's waiting lists, and there's application fees. You have to actually pay to enrol now for an admin charge and things like that. So they're catching on like estate agents and letting agents.
it's right. It's not. It's wrong. It's all wrong. That is, because that all of that puts more pressure on you, and you're trying to bust your butt. Especially like me, I'm a single mom, so trying to bust your butt to get out to work and put your kids in nursery or after school club or summer club or all that kind of stuff. It's really hard work, and then it's all that extra money.
Not going into too much detail, but you earn a decent wage. There are people that earn a lot less.
I haven't always though, Lise.
No.
I haven't. I mean, that's just a recent thing that you know, when I was at Carillion, I was on 25 grand a year. I know that probably sounds a lot to some people, but it isn't.
No, but I think that would be a lot to some people, and then some people are on a lot less than that. How on earth they do it, I don't know. I think that's why they get that situation where it actually doesn't benefit them to work. They can't afford to work.
My own daughter's in that situation. She wants to get out, but then she's got two girls, and she would have to find someone to look after them and pay them, and because she hasn't got much experience, because she's so young and she had her children early, she would have to have a minimum wage job.
And that doesn't pay for
yes, it's a circle, and now she's stuck on benefit, which she hates. She's stuck in the house. She's 24 years old, beautiful, got the world at her feet, and she's depressed. So she's stuck in that cycle. Yet people look down at her because she's on benefit. Think she's lazy.
It's a trap you can't get out of. If she's only going to earn in an hour what it's going to cost her for the children to be looked after, you don't have to be very good at maths to do that equation, do you?
Well, it doesn't motivate you to get off your butt and do something about your life if the alternative isn't that much better. And she's trapped in, like, even if she goes back to university, she's never been to university, even if she goes to college and learns something new, that still someone's got to look after the kids. And
I don't think it's about motivation, it's a practical thing. If you're earning 10 and you're spending 10, there is no more left to pay the bills. How does that work?
Yeah,
it doesn't work, does it?
No. And we've gone off topic, but
no, it's relevant though, because it's relevant into the why women are paid less, and if the stats average out and include maternity leave and they're still paid less, you have to look at why. Is it because as far as an employer's view, they're worth less, or is it from the employee's view, they're worth less and they don't insist on getting more? You know, so I think it is, you know, if say someone that was in your daughter's situation went to get a job and they said, well, you haven't got this and you haven't got that, therefore I'm only going to pay you that. Someone with less experience might go, okay then.
Yeah.
Someone with more experience, a little bit of more self-confidence might go, well, actually, I know I'm worth that. And then it's up to the employer to decide. So I think it's, you know, that's all relevant. Self-esteem, self-confidence and self-worth, what you feel is kind of where you pitch. You know, we only achieve what we imagine we can, don't we? We're limited by our own imagination. So are women limited by their own expectation and self-worth?
While you've been talking, I think I was so annoyed. I've always I've had that in my little, you know, that little sort of box at the side going, I was really annoyed when I worked for Carillion that man got paid more than me and doing the same job, blah, blah, blah. And I've just filed it and I haven't really examined it. And I still feel like that. But while you've been talking, never once, apart from talking to my boss and about moaning about the wages and how could I bridge the gap, when I was originally offered the job, I never at any point went, well, yeah, you should be 30, I'm worth 30. So yes, that is about conditioning, isn't it? I think I'd be more likely now to go, no, I want the top of the level. And in fact, I did that the other day when someone was talking about a job. I said, I'll be looking to the top of that level, not the bottom. So maybe it's a confidence thing that grows over years. But I mean, I just think that when I worked at Carillion 7 years ago, I would never have dreamed of saying, yeah, but like I need more. I mean, I'm worth more like 28 or 30.
That was a good Freudian slip.
What did I say?
I need more. No, I'm worth more. That was interesting, wasn't it? To almost sometimes I think we perceive that we better not ask for it, and it's a pride thing and it's not need. It is worth. Why are there so many women that don't feel worth that? To challenge that.
Yeah.
I absolutely get, you know, they go, well, this is the grade and I can't exceed it. Well, if that's the thing, I'm certainly going in at the top of it. Why is that such not a mindset that women have?
Because you're so grateful for any opportunity sometimes.
And this sparks up another one, which is probably a whole other topic. But in terms of job applications and gratitude, and maybe putting up with things that aren't ideal to get the job or earn the money, it's a tenuous link, but it popped into my head, and it's very controversial. The whole I've got to be very careful how I word this, because I'm not saying I'm in support of anything, I'm just explaining. The say predominantly American film producers, directors, that whole issue with women putting up with behaviour, being subjected to behaviour that wasn't appropriate at all, because they wanted the job. Because if they wanted to get that role, that's what they had to do to get that role. There's a part of me in the exact same vein of, why did they not say, I'm worth more than this, and if that's what it takes to get that role, I do not want that role, no matter what the financial reimbursement that comes my way for doing what you want me to. Do you know what I'm saying? It's the same to me. It just feels a very similar energy of why women haven't insisted on the top level of a grade, say, the same as everyone else before, or why these women felt that there was no other option available to them other than to say yes. And I'm not talking about in a forced, coercive situation.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, but they're put in that position where they feel that if they do something or play the game, that they'll get an advantage to let them get that role or whatever they're I get it, and I get both ways. But I mean, isn't that down to the man who is using his power to infer to that person? I mean, there are women out there that that are okay with whatever they have to do to get ahead, right? And if that's you, fair enough. Okay, love, go and do what you've got to do and live with the consequences. That's fine. But isn't it about the man who is using his power in that position of authority to coerce that out of a young actress or whatever
and
is?
That's my point. How come they don't know they don't have to give that power away to that person? Perhaps someone's only
because otherwise they won't get the part, they won't get their chance.
And so that is the trade off. That's saying I accept this behavior to get that, and that is a conscious decision.
I think those are the women, right, that I just mentioned, those women who are prepared to, and men, whatever, that want to do something to get something, then they live with the consequences. But there are other people who are coerced into it because they're desperate for that thing. But
that's like,
yeah, but that man is using his power to use their insecurities against them. That's what I've got a problem with. If you make the decision yourself, fair enough, you got the consequences, you got to live with it, it's your accountability, you made that decision. But if someone is manipulating you because they see that you're vulnerable, you don't, like, some of these people may not be able to pay their next bill, they've got no food left, they're in a position, that person is almost like predatory. And then
definitely,
yeah, so that's what I've got a problem with. Not people who make that decision, fair play to them, whatever they want to do, it's their life. But I've got a problem with the guy who has all that wealth and that bloody arrogance that some of them have about they've got it all and they can have what they want. I hate that. They
can only have what they want if someone's willing to give it to them.
Yeah, but then they become narcissistic master manipulators and they see any chink in someone. Who doesn't have a chink in their armor apart from these perpetrators? Who doesn't have that chink?
They definitely have chinks.
Yeah,
they definitely have chinks.
But you know what I mean? They become the master manipulator and they can coerce people. I've been coerced into saying things and not necessarily like doing, like I'm the casting couch, but I've been coerced into saying things because people have seen in the old me, my old story, a vulnerability. But that didn't make me wrong, did it? Because I'm getting very passionate about this now, but that meant, that was my old story. If you are growing up and you're insecure and you've been conditioned to feel a certain way, if a person is stronger and able to see you and see that vulnerability and then they use that to manipulate you, that's not your fault.
I don't think fault's the right word, but then I don't think blame is, in the sense of
what if you don't know any better at the time? What if you've been brought up to look up to authority? That's what my mother used to say to me. Gotta look up to these people. You've got to respect these people because basically they were better than me, or that's the not the perception that was ground into me. They are better than you. He's a doctor. He's a policeman. He's a politician. They're better than you. So you've got to look up to them. And that became all authority figures. So if that person was a manipulative shit, then here I was like, okay, well, I've got to do what you say. And that's down to conditioning.
Yeah, and I think definitely when you're younger, obviously you don't have a choice. That's the society you were brought up in. But I think some of these, when you're older, aren't you? When you go into the world of the workplace, you get a bit more wise. You do know things that's the right behavior and the wrong behavior. I think if they didn't know it was wrong behavior, they wouldn't feel so bad for it happening. So they know that it wasn't right and proper behavior, but that's what I'm talking about, the actual people that consent because they, like you say, they've got a bill they need to pay. That is the choice, because I think you can say no. and I have said no, and I don't care what the size of the check is or the job. You're not having a piece of me in that way, and I will not be coerced. And that's, I think, again, it's a self-worth, self-confidence thing where you go, no way, nobody can take that bit of you away from you without your and
I agree with you, and I'm like that now.
Yeah.
But even when I didn't, even as I got older, I still put up with stuff that, like.
But you knew, you must have, as you're older, you must have known that it was not, I'm not saying the right thing, because it's not right and wrong. It's that you knew it must have provoked a feeling in you of, I'd rather not be doing this, but I feel like I've got no choice. Like, you knew there was something not right happening or being asked of you.
If that's the way that you've always been, that becomes the normal, and thinking anything else only makes you feel resistant or uncomfortable. If you've done it a certain way and that's got results, you don't necessarily see it as wrong or right.
Yeah.
Until with retrospect, when you look back, like now I look back and go, what the hell were you doing? Why did you put up with those people talking to you like that? Why did you put up with that behavior? And it's only now looking back, and I have recently had the experience of someone insinuating that if they helped me, I could help them. And I said,
not in a good way.
oh no, I said, no, thank you. That's never going to happen. Hell will freeze over before I help you in that way, mate.
So that, and I think that's why the two things are tied in, because the women that say yes or don't feel they're worthy enough to say no, and that is the same energy to me as women that don't feel that they can say yes or they're worthy enough in a normal employment situation. Because really, it's about employment, even in that field. Aren't there male TV presenters are paid more than women and things like that? So it is relevant in that sense, but also just in the way that people feel they have to say yes to things they'd rather not, just to pay the bill. So and that might, as you said, that could affect men as well as women in that one. So where is that going wrong? So to take your example, that was from your upbringing. So are these actresses had similar upbringings? You think they've been used to being bullied, used to being put on, been told by their parents to do this, you've got to accept that? Or, culturally, do we get that message? I think definitely culturally we get the message of objectifying and sexualizing women way more than men. You never see the same lack of clothes on in a man in a video that you do in a woman. So I think that's definitely must contribute to women's worth. But you'd think with that they would feel worth more, that they're being idolized, that they have some power. It's very clever how the sexualization of women doesn't become a power in the same way that the monetary dominance of men becomes a sexual power. That's like really intertwined.
Somebody said that to me the other day. A male friend said to me, if I was a woman, not me, if he was a woman, he would use his power over men more. And I thought...
And what would most men call that woman?
A whore.
Yeah.
Or God knows what else. But he said if I had boobs, I'd just flash them on the internet and get money for it. And I just thought, okay then. And some people do that, and if they do, that's fine by me, but it isn't what I want to do. But it's just that women do have a power. And like, me, I got confused a few years ago when I lost all my weight, and I then suddenly became a sexual being, from being obese and then being invisible to being slim. And then I got really confused by it all, and I really reveled in that sexuality and having blokes tell me I was sexy and all that kind of stuff. But it got too far the other way, where I was using that to get the validation. So then I get married, and my husband obviously doesn't want me to be looking sexy. Not that I was like a tart.
Doesn't want you to look what attracted him to you when you met.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The very thing that attracted, well, basically he wanted to keep me hidden, didn't he? So that, and because I was always getting blokes like chatting me up and saying things in supermarkets and stuff like that, and he hated it. So then I went the other way, because he used to say it really peed him off that I was wearing a size 10 dress that showed my curves. You know, there was nothing hanging out, no boobs out, no legs out, but just curvaceous. And he hated that. So then I went the other way, and then I started to completely hide myself, you know, she says, in a black shirt and her black trousers. And but I'm starting to see that I can own my sexuality without the negative thoughts about it. So why should I bloody hide myself away and look like I don't know, like he used to say, you need to look more like a librarian. And that's stereotyping librarians, because I'm sure there's sexy librarians.
Well, I think that is a sexy stereotype in itself.
Is it?
Isn't it?
See, I see librarians as like tweed skirts and black brown shoes and polo necks and like not that sexy. But the point is, what you should be able to own your sexuality and be sexy without worrying about being judged by other people because of that. You know, that's wrong as well.
So, and that's an interesting one. So if you transplant that you into a boardroom now, and I've had this experience where I went to for a big building society directors meeting, and there are a couple of women, of which I was one, the rest were men, and they are all wearing black and grey suits. And so I decided, I went out and specially bought a red Chanel 2-piece skirt and jacket suit. So I walked in and I was the only colour in the room. Now, it wasn't revealing. It was buttoned up to there, a nice boxy jacket. And then I think the skirt was to the knees, but in a beautiful red chenille. Really nice. It was the 80s, so I had shoulder pads. And so I walked into the boardroom out of the lift, and it's that whole ding, everyone turns their head, and I look around and think, I am like the black
standing
sheep
out
in a field of white sheep here. I'm standing out. And you know, that was just for how I was dressed. Now, I was offered a directorship and I turned it down because it wasn't for me. But I would have been joining the troops, and I would have then felt, definitely, it was an unspoken pressure, and I don't know if you felt this back in the 80s and the 90s, there was a definite unspoken pressure how to dress, and it was all suits and it was business-like, and it was very
power dressing.
But definitely male-oriented, not female-oriented. The men weren't trying to take dressing tips off the women. It was like, you're here to do a job. You're not here to dress like you're going out to a nightclub or going out to dinner or whatever. So for a long time, and I've got 2 boys, so I haven't had daughters, felt frustration at the lack of amazing clothes for boys and men's. It's, in the last probably the last decade, it's got a lot more colourful. Noel Edmonds wears very colourful shirts. Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen. There's little movements, but men generally at work in that boardroom scenario are still
all the same.
Suit, shirt. It's a uniform, and it's monotony, and it's so much of a like a boys' club of what's the word? I don't know, like a homologous look that any woman would stand out, and only for what she's wearing, before you ever get down to the business acumen, intelligence, experience, ideas, creativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would never have fitted, and I realised that many years ago, that I was not going to fit into that environment. And had I gone into that environment with my energy and colour and creativity, I would have just, back then, it would have been head against a brick wall. It was bad enough as it was. I had 2 male bosses above me at one point, and one was the one directly above me was a bully. and the one above him didn't want to know because the bully got the results. There were other ways to get better results, but no one wanted to know that. You know what I'm saying? So, and when I took that up, I got put on garden leave straight away. Goodbye. Like, you're rocking the boat. Take your ideas and your colour and your creativity and get off out of here. We want this boys' club, you know, inner sanctum kept how it is. Thank you. You're only allowed in if you play by our rules.
You were rocking the boat.
I was rocking the boat. So I knew that wasn't for me from a very early in my career. No, I mean, I stayed in finance for a while after that, but yeah, just trying to imagine you in that, being comfortable in your womanness, being in a boardroom. If you then switched it and said, this woman is paid more than any man in here, the whole dynamic would change, I think, from a power point of view. You'd suddenly get the sort of, the ambitious ones would suddenly become your best friends. Do you know what I mean? And I think the dynamic would change completely just based on the money, the level you're earning, regardless of what you brought to the role. And I think that's what's happening. If it's in a male dominated, the money is the status symbol, regardless of what they bring to the role.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it'd be, and there are women, the directors in board situations, but I never felt any real connection with them because they were doing the fitting in rather than the creating outwards.
You know what you were just saying about owning your sexuality and still being part of that role. I remember this woman coming in. She was a consultant, and it was another company. And we were talking to the lads, the men that were in the meeting with her. I wasn't in the meeting, but when they came out, apparently she was like a real whiz kid, brilliant, clever woman, and she'd done a fantastic presentation. And do you know what they talked about for 45 minutes after that meeting? The fact that you could see her white bra through her white blouse.
Oh my goodness.
And I think that's affected the way I look at stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how old are you? You're like a 40, 50-year-old man, you know, and all you notice during that, and you're having a conversation about seeing the woman's, how sexy it was to see her bra through her top.
But if we had a movement where we said, okay, women, let's all get together. We were only going to wear navy suits and white blouses.
Yeah. And don't let your bra
show.
Every
woman in the workplace wore that, no matter where they were. Every woman wore that. The men would be going, well, that's really boring. Like,
yeah.
They probably promote you based on the fact that you wore a different coloured scarf or tie or something. You know,
yeah.
It wouldn't work the same, would it, if women dressed like men?
That's right. Or the new thing for men is they still wear boring suits, but they put brown shoes with it.
Oh, God. Now, there's a rule. Do you know the rule about brown shoes?
Shouldn't wear bloody brown shoes, full stop, they're ugly. But this new thing that I noticed, because I was obviously working for a big company not long ago, just after Christmas, and the new thing is to wear like a grey suit or a black suit with brown shoes and white socks. It looks disgusting.
I know. I don't like brown shoes. I never wear brown shoes after 6 o'clock. That's the rule.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
But I hate the other one where their trousers are too short for them, and they actually highlight the fact by wearing white socks.
What's that about?
Wearing cropped trousers with
These
white
people
socks.
Not look in the mirror before they go out. They obviously don't.
But that's probably the most flair they can get away with in the suited world.
Mm.
But yeah.
You get the odd one with it that comes to a big corporate office with a velvet jacket on, and I just want to applaud them and go, well done, mate, well done. Or a cravat. You think, okay then.
Oh dear.
You've got to admire the creativity. Well, I think we've put that on to bed and probably spoke about 100 other things.
Yeah, but they're kind of all tied in. So my surmisation or my little thing,
closing point
is to women, insist on more. You can. And if you feel
and why shouldn't you?
You are. Yeah, I'm just gobsmacked because you're very similar to me. It's very interesting that you never felt that you could, and I absolutely knew that I should. If you know, absolutely knew that I should.
You've got this inherent confidence, right? And not all women have got that, Lisa. I know you haven't always had it, but you've got this sort of tough core running through you that has this strength of character, like, no, you're not going to do that to me, and no, this isn't going to happen. And we don't all have that, or we don't all develop it until perhaps later in life. I mean, you're younger than me, but I'm 51 and I'm only just getting to that stage where I can challenge and go, no, you're not going to talk to me like that. No, you're not going to offer me that money. You're not going to do that.
How do we get that to everybody else? That's the thing. People need to know they can.
Yeah.
You know.
It's only like the last couple of years since we've been following Kyle Cease, and we've been like meditating and getting rid of narcissistic husbands and things like that, that you get that. That's what we need to package, isn't it, and give that to every woman out there, because you are allowed to challenge, you are allowed to say, and you are allowed to speak up and not put up with bullshit. And
that doesn't equate to being aggressive.
A feminist, no, an ardent feminist. I'm not one of them either. People, it might look like it, but I'm not. It's about equality.
What do feminists look like?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, there's stereotypes. There are stereotypes, but I don't know what a feminist look like. I'm not prepared to chain myself to the railings or anything like that, or go out with a placard. But I will stand up for other people and stand up for myself now. And I wish I'd done that when I was in my 20s. God knows where I'd be now, but I'm not. And now's my time to challenge it and to feel like I've got the confidence to say, no, sod you.
Yeah.
I'll do it my way.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, and it's not a blame thing, but you cannot, not you, people cannot complain they've got less if they accept less.
That's right.
That is your personal responsibility.
It is. It's conditioning, but you do get to the stage where you suddenly take the blinkers off and go, why the hell have I put up with that for so many years?
Yeah.
Why the hell should I?
And that I think is self-belief and self-confidence are different. I've always had an innate belief. Confidence, I've been confident ever since I was young, but not in all areas, say. But I've always had self-belief and self-worth and always known that. And so it's trying to get that, everybody to feel that. You don't have to think you're confident, but you absolutely need to believe in yourself and know your self-worth. And then I think that's the bit that then you check in with and go, actually, no, I'm worth more than that. I deserve more than that. Or believe in myself more. So
yes, because that's what's missing. You've just hit the nail on the head, because that's what's missing in those actresses that feel like they've got to do what they've got to do to get the job, because they've suddenly had a doubt about their self-belief that it will come in the long run without having to rubbish themselves or to do something that they're going to later regret. Yeah, isn't that the missing point? They've lost that belief that it will come. I was listening to Abraham Hicks this morning with Esther, and she was saying there was a bird on her tree outside, and it was chirping away and chirping away and chirping away and calling and calling and calling for hours on end. And she was like, what the hell's going on? Why are you calling? And then it was calling for its baby. And the point was that it didn't stop chirping and it didn't stop going until that baby came, because it knew it would.
Yes.
And that's it, isn't it? It's that belief that, you know, sometimes things don't come to you when you want them. They don't come to you when you need them. But you've just got to keep chirping.
Yes. Even if you can't see them, keep chirping, bird.
I know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? You lose sight of it, don't you? That's probably in my life when I've made bad decisions, is when I've not seen that if I just held on for 2 more minutes or gone
Yeah.
round the corner, there was what I was waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
That's
Well,
gonna
I've
be
really enjoyed today.
cool. It's gonna be a catchphrase now. Keep chirping.
Fabulous.
Bye.
Well, thank you ever so much, and I've really enjoyed today, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Bye.